Hello. Today I'm going to be making a crochet iPad cover for my friend whose birthday is literally tomorrow, and I need to make sure that I get this gift right. Along the way, I'm actually going to take y'all through the tutorial of making it so you can recreate it yourself if you like it as well. I'm going to be showing you how to make the different panels for it, how to attach it, and the basic stitches that go into making it. I will not be showing you how to add the lining in because I normally do that by hand, so it is entirely up to preference. But yes, today we are doing the crochet iPad cover. You will see the results at the end of the video. Throughout the video, I'll also try and make sure to keep screenshots of the different stages of the pattern, or instead of stages, or maybe just the written down pattern and different screenshots or different ways you can change it and adjust it to your liking. And with no further ado, let's get on with the tutorial. So for this project, you're going to need a couple of items to get started. One, obviously, you are going to need your crochet hook. In this case, I will be using a 4.5mm. You will, of course, need a scissor. This is a granny square kind of pattern, so there's a lot of yarn being introduced and being cut out, so you're just going to need it on hand at all times. You will also need your yarn, obviously. In this case, I am using cream, mauve, and beige. You are, of course, not limited to just using 3 colors. You can use as many colors as you'd like, or just 1 color, or even 2 colors. Honestly, this is a very adaptable pattern, so you don't really have to worry about how many colors you're using. This is entirely up to you, and what makes it great is you can just use your remaining scraps of yarn as well, because you're constantly introducing or removing different colors of yarn. So this is a great scrap busting project as well. Now you will need to make 2 panels. In this case, I will be making 1 panel with beige as the center and 1 as mauve as the center. So we're gonna get started with mauve. Now the stitches that we're going to use throughout this project are quite simple. They are very beginner friendly. We're going to be using double crochet, slip stitches, and chain stitches. These are 3 very easy and achievable stitches, and they work up very quickly. And that's one of the best things about this, is that you can 100% do this in a day depending on your crocheting speed. Now the way I'm going to start this off is entirely up to preference. In my case, I will be starting it with a couple of chains, but you can always start this with a magic circle. In this case, I will not be using a magic circle, but if you do prefer that, do go ahead and do that. So I'm going to start off with a slip stitch, which is you take your yarn in your hand, you can wrap around 2 or 3 fingers. I prefer 2. You'll just cross it over like this. You can hold it down over here. You can then take your hook, go underneath this first yarn, and pull this one through. You'll have a loose loop, and you can just tighten it from here. Now, from here, you're going to either chain 3 to 4 stitches. I prefer 3. So I'm going to just chain 3 stitches. And how you're going to do that is you'll just take your yarn over, and just hold it taut enough that you can hold onto it with ease. If you leave it too loose, pulling it through becomes a little difficult. So just hold it a little, like just enough that you can pull it through, but not so much that you can feel the resistance from your other hand. So it is, if you are a beginner, it will take you a little time to get used to it, but the one great thing about this project is you get used to it very quickly, and you can get used to the crocheting techniques quickly as well. So I'm just going to show that again. So hold the yarn in whichever way you feel comfortable, hold it just tightly enough. You can use your non-dominant hand, in this case it's my left hand, to hold the stitch down or keep it in one place. You're going to take your hook or your yarn, up to you. You're going to pull it over here. Just pull So this is going to be called yarning over. So if you look at a written pattern, it's going to be called YO. And this, normally they don't, but if it is there, you'll get to know now. And yarning over is just literally putting the yarn over your hook. From here, you're just going to pull your hook right through. Again, I'm just going to yarn over, hold it tightly enough. I normally bring my crochet hook down, and you're just going to pull it through this loop here. And again, one more stitch. So now I have my 3 stitches over here for me to get started with my panel. From here, I'm gonna go, so you have 1, 2, 3, and I'm gonna go into this first stitch that we made here. So I'm gonna just take my hook, pull it through this particular stitch, and from here I'm going to pull it right through, and this is what we call a slip stitch. Now what we have here is what looks like a clump of stitches. So if you're a beginner, this looks like you're doing it wrong, but believe me, you are not doing it wrong. This is correct. This is what it's going to look like. Now we're going to take our yarn and chain 2 stitches. I'm going to chain 2, yeah. Now from here, you're going to now insert your needle into the center of this. It looks like a clump of stitches, but if you just pull the stitches apart a little bit, you'll see this teeny tiny little hole here, and you're just going to yarn over once. You're not going to pull this through already. You're going to just yarn over. You're going to put it right through this circle here, yarn over and pull through. You're going to then yarn over again, and then you're going to yarn over once more, and you have completed your first double crochet for this project. Again, I'm going to just yarn over once, go through the center, yarn over again, pull through, yarn over, pull through once more, and yarn over, pull through again. This is the first cluster in this granny square. Yes, in this granny square. And we're going to create 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and you're again going to yarn over, go through here, and you're just going to pull through as you did in the previous 2 stitches, and you've already got started on your second cluster of stitches. Now this first cluster of stitches, and it's entirely up to you, you can choose whether you would like to include this chain 2 here as your first stitches. In my case, I am doing that. But again, it's all up to your preference. Now from here, you're gonna again yarn over, pull through, and make 1 more double crochet, and you're gonna make a cluster of 3 double crochets from here on out. The only time you're only gonna make 2 double crochets is in the first cluster of stitches that you make. So again, I'm gonna chain 3 to make the next corner of my granny square. 1, 2, 3, and you're going to yarn over and make your 3 more double crochet stitches. In total, your first round is going to have 4 clusters, 1 which will have the 2 chains and 2 double crochets, and 3 which will have the 3 double crochets. I'm just going to pull out some more yarn here. If you have a yarn bowl, please go forth and use it, but obviously as a beginner you may not, so get ready to just constantly keep on pulling yarn. And again, just finish off this row. Here we have 3, and we're going to chain 3, and we're going to make our next 3 double crochets. So as you can see, I also made my tail kind of go around with me, which is basically to just weave in the ends as I'm going, because I'm lazy and I don't enjoy weaving in ends. But don't worry, if you haven't done that, you can always just weave it in later. Now we've made our 4 clusters. You're just going to chain 3 again. and we're going to slip stitch into the first stitch here. In this case, this chain 2 is our first stitch, so you can choose to chain here. I prefer to chain up here, and you're just going to take this first chain here, put your hook through, yarn over, pull through, and just pull into that stitch as well. Now from here you will just, this is entirely up to you. You can either remove your slip stitch from here and bring in your new yarn here, but I'm going to show you another way, which is you're going to take this, you're obviously going to slip through, and at this point, this is again up to your preference. You can get ready to cut your yarn now, which is what I'm about to do. 1 second. We're here, we're going to just take this. I've just cut my yarn. We're going to slip through. Now we're again going to slip through right here into the next double crochet that you've made in the first round. And from here, you're not going to bring a slip stitch with this. You are going to bring in a slip stitch with your next color of yarn. So in my case, it is this beige. So we're going to just take the beige. You're going to just take a loose amount. I recommend keeping just enough of a tail so that you can weave it in later. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your yarn, hold it roughly just enough that this end over here is enough for you to weave in later on. You're going to just create a little loop of your own, bring it onto your hook after you've just put it through the second chain 3 over here. You'll put it through here, hook it on, and you're just going to loosely pull it through right now. What you're going to do next is take this previous tail, the previous color. So one of the great things, if you are going to be using different colors, just be careful to do this. Take the previous one, kind of tightly secure it. You're going to weave this in later, so don't worry about it getting undone. You can just leave it as is right now. From here, just pull these 2 bits of yarn over here. And what I prefer to do, just to be a little secure, is I take both pieces of yarn, I will yarn over, and I will create a chain and just really tighten it out so that it kind of just creates almost like a weird slip knot right over here. So we're going to pull through right here. You can now drop the tail, the part, this is called the tail. And again, you're going to chain 1, 2. This knot that I made over here, I do not count as a chain stitch. I count it as my securing knot over here, so it's not going to be counted. Now from here you have your chain 2. Again, we're going to get started with our double crochets. We're going to make a cluster of 3, and throughout this pattern we're going to be working in the gaps. We're not going to be working in the stitches themselves unless it's to attach it. Now we've made our first cluster, which is the chain 2 and the 2 double crochet. Again, since we are starting at the corner, you're just going to chain 3 and yarn over and make your double crochet cluster. And of course, this one is going to have 3 double crochets. And for the rest of the pattern, whenever you come to a corner like this, always remember that there will be 2 clusters of 3 double crochet, and in between those 2 clusters will be a chain 3. Now from here, for me to get from this point A to this point B, I'm just going to chain 2. You can chain 3, depends how loose you would like it. So I prefer 2 so it doesn't get all that loose, and I'm going to yarn over again and pull through. And now I have brought my yarn from point A to point B right here. And I'm just going to repeat what I did in the previous stitches, which is create my 3 double crochet, chain 3, yarn over, go through, and make my next 3 double crochets. So as you can see, half of my square is already forming, and I'm just going to continue the same exact process. I will untangle my yarn as well. So from here, I'm going to repeat the same exact thing I did over here, which is chain 2, yarn over, pull through. Now for whatever you are making, you are going to make sure to make this specific square that we are making the width of the item. So in my case, I am doing an iPad that's roughly 9.74 inches by 7.02 inches. So my square has to measure roughly 7 inches in size. And obviously, because it is a square, all the sides are the same. And I don't know why I'm saying that, because I feel like everyone knows that all sides of a square are same. But anyways, I'm just repeating this pattern that I just did. Here we go. Again, chain 2. You're gonna yarn over again, pull through, make a cluster. And I'm just finishing off this last cluster here. We now have our whole square. We're just going to now finish off the square, which is going to be chain 2 again. 1, 2, and you're just going to bring it to this stitch over here, yarn over, make your slip stitch, and you'll just kind of walk your yarn over here. I don't know why I called it walk, but anyways, just gonna bring it here, and this is where you're going to attach your next color. Or if you're not, you can just go through here and just continue as you normally would. But obviously, since I am going to be doing this with multiple colors, in this case 2, we are going to bring in the purple again, and this is where I would normally cut my yarn. So I'm probably going to just leave roughly this much, I would say. So now I'm just going to put my beige yarn to a side, and I'm going to bring my purple yarn back in to yarn, and we're going to reattach it. The same process as we did in the beginning. You're going to just put your hook through here, leave this tail alone, just keep it to a side. You can use your needle holding hand to just manage it. From here, leave a decent amount of tail for you to weave in. You're going to take your yarn, create a kind of loop with your hands, take this and just pull it through loosely, take your tail, tighten it back in, pull this in as well. I normally just take both the yarns and I just create my securing knot, pulling this end of the knot. I'm going to just drop this tail here, and now I'm just going to make my chain 2 again. 1, 2, and now what we're going to be doing in this round is going to apply for all of the rounds to complete the main square itself. So obviously we'll make our first cluster. 1, 2. We've made our first cluster, and we're going to chain 1, 2, 3. Again, yarn over, make your double crochets. and that is one corner done. Now the next thing I'm going to do, obviously I'm not going to bring my yarn all the way from here to here. I'm going to chain in this 2 chain gap right here, and this is going to apply for the rest of the granny square rounds that you're going to do. You're just going to chain 2 how you did before, chain 2, and this is where you're going to make 3 double crochets. You're going to make 1 cluster in this chain 2 space. So there we go. Don't worry, I will show it again at the next one as well. And here we go. Now from here again, it's going to be chain 2 and yarn over, bring it into this corner. And of course this is a corner, so you're just going to make your chain 3, going to yarn over and create your next cluster. And again, I'm just going to show you how to cross your yarn over from each corner to the next. So again, this is what it looks like over here, and we're just going to repeat that all around. So you're just going to take your hook, you're going to chain 2. Just remember that for everything except the corners, you will be chaining 2. So I've already chained 1, I'm going to chain 2. So over these stitches, okay, we're going to chain 2 like we did over here. Again, yarn over, you're going to go through this gap over here. You're not going to leave it alone. You're going to go yarn over, go through this, yarn over again, pull your hook through, and then of course, as you would your double crochet, yarn over twice, and you have your double crochet stitch. And again, for the whole project, you're just going to do 3 double crochets for every 1 cluster. So here we go. And of course, now chain 2, yarn over, and we're going to go back to this corner, create 1 cluster of stitches, and this is a corner, so again chain 3 at this point, 1, 2, 3, yarn over again, and we can get started with the next cluster of stitches. There we go. And of course, chain 2, now chain 2, I'll make my next cluster. I'm going to chain 2 again, bring it to a corner. We're going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and create my next cluster. And now we are at the final stretch of this row, or this round, or this part of my granny square. Your yarns may get entangled, so you can just, at this point, probably just separate them to make sure you don't get confused. Keep your yarns as separate as you can. From here, just chain 2 and create your last cluster here. 1, 2, and 3. And essentially, we are now done with the square. We are now just going to join these 2 points Like I said, for everything except the corner spaces, you are going to chain 2. So 1, 2, and you're going to find your first stitch. So it's going to be this little sucker over here, pull through, slip stitch, and of course just walk your yarn over to your next corner. In this case it's this, and this is where I'm going to attach my base yarn, and just follow this process again. I'm going to keep on repeating this until I achieve the width that I need, which is around 7 inches. So I will be back when I have finished my whole granny square. I will put up a little screenshot slide right now for you so that you can just see what are your next steps going forward. And I'll just show you how many rows that I will be doing this for, along with what changes you could make if this was for a much larger item or smaller item, and it's up to you entirely where you want to go from here now. Okay, so I am going to start my final row. I currently have 5 rows done. I need to do a 6th to reach the 7 inches width that I need. So I'm just going to repeat the same process as we always do to finish off the row, which is and there we go. We have finished with the main square that we are going to base the rest of the project on. And from here, I'm now just going to attach it here. And I'm going to just yarn over. And now, of course, I have cut off my extra yarn. And now I'm going to just chain 1, chain 2, and then as if I'm about to chain, but I'm just going to pull the entire yarn out and hold this down and just tug on it well. And the square is done. Now, obviously, this square is not going to fit the dimensions I have in mind, which is 9.72 inches by 7.02 inches. So from here, I'm now going to create 2 more rows on each side, because in my case, one set of clusters is roughly 1/2 inch. So I'm going to just add that on. So from here, I'm going to have to attach the purple yarn on both sides. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. And I'm going to create 1 row of purple yarn only on one side. I'm not going to continue all the way around. I'm just going to stick to this top part here and this bottom part here. Make sure to always start on this right side, because then we have this mess over here that you kind of want to contain and keep it in one place so you don't have to constantly worry about it. Now, in this case, I want to start my 2 extension rows from this part and this part, not from these 2 sides. So I'm going to start from here. I'm just going to take my yarn again, as always, leaving a little tail. Now, this is a corner, yes, but you're going to treat this as if it's one of these chain 2 parts here. So you're going to see what I mean in just a second. We're going to just bring this through and create that knot that I spoke about before. Just tighten that here, drop the tail, and create the chain 2, 1, 2, and we're going to create 1 cluster. So that's 1 technically done with. So create my 1 cluster here, just slightly weaving in that tail over there with it. As you can see, it now looks like it's part of these regular clusters, and I'm going to follow the same pattern that I've made though, which is chain 2 and bring it across here for the chain 3, sorry, not chain 3, the double crochet clusters that we have over here. And there we are. We have the extension row, if you will, done on one side, and all I have to do is just tie it off at this point. Pull that through and tug. I'm gonna just repeat the same process on this side. I recommend making sure to do it on each side rather than doing it all on one side, which is just a good idea for you to keep on measuring and see so that it looks equal, instead of after one point realizing that you may have crocheted too much on one side and none at all on the other. And essentially now this is roughly 8 inches or so long. I'm now going to bring in my next color of yarn, and this is going to reach the 9 inches that I need, and the 0.74 inches, which I'm rounding off to a very doable 1 inch, I will be creating a border. So I'm just going to finish off this one extra row, and I'm going to show you how to do that because this will be different from the previous one. In the previous round we would attach to this corner space, but obviously right now we no longer have this corner space to attach to. So how are we going to attach it? Now from here, just going to insert your hook through, and we're still going to work through these gaps, by the way, but obviously for it to look like a rectangle you can't start from here, so we're going to start from the first stitch that we made. So we're just going to pull through, and we're going to create the same securing knot that we do throughout this project. From here you're going to chain 2, and we're going to just drop that little tail over there. So 1, 2, and this chain 2 is almost as if it's another stitch, but in this case we're going to actually chain 4, and this is going to act like a fake corner section like this here for the next round that's going to come up. So just remember to start this one off from this first stitch and chain 4. Now from here you will immediately start into your next cluster. This is just here to act as this corner, so you're going to yarn over and create the 3 double crochet cluster, and you're going to continue this right up until here, and again we're going to repeat this same process at the end, and I'm just going to show you how to do that. Okay, now we have reached the ending point of this, and we're now going to finish off this one row. So we've had our last cluster of stitches here. I'm going to just pick it up again, and this is where we're going to repeat what we did in this section here. So I'm just going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to secure it in this last stitch over here, and this will be our pseudo situation. Now I've slip stitched it here just to secure it for my sake. I'm going to go out of it and do one more slip stitch and kind of just tighten it down a bit and create one more chain, and from here I'm just going to cut it off and sew it back in and fasten it off. Don't worry so much about these odd looking ends. Every single one of these is going to be woven in somehow, so it all kind of fixes itself up as you go. And again, the length of this in my case is going to be just 1 inch shorter than what I actually need, because I'm going to be doing a final row all around. So this is going to be my final row for this specific color scheme. Now there we go. This is your base granny rectangle square, whatever you want to call it. This is the back. It's going to have a lot of tails. Just keep it. If you want, you can start weaving in the ends right now. I will not, because weaving ends are not my favorite thing to do, so I will not be doing that right now. Now from here we're going to create the border. I have already made one panel, so this is what it looks like with the border. And from here it's going to be very straightforward. Now we're just going to create this whole border in the same way that we would for the square. And now from here you can start from any point that you like. Now this is entirely to your preference. I'm going to start just in one corner because I prefer starting in corners. You can start in the center. This is entirely up to you. There are many stitches for you to start from. Now, in the same way that we would attach the previous colors, you're just going to take your hook, your yarn, pull through, create the knot. There we go. And I'm going to get started on making one corner. So I'm just going to drop the tail over here. And in the same way we did the main granny square, I'm going to chain 2, yarn over, pull through, make 2 stitches. There we go. Now from here we're going to just chain 3 and pull through, and now we have the first corner of this round. And now, as I did for the entire square, I'm just going to follow this whole pattern again of chain 2, 3 crochets in the gap, chain 2, 3 crochets in the gap, and I will just be back. We have reached one corner done. Let's just bring some more yarn here for me. Now, this is ideal. This is the place that most people would get confused, but don't worry, it's super easy. Right here, you're gonna treat this stitch over here like it is one of these stitches. So again, you're just going to chain 2 as you normally would. And again, don't think about this. Always remember you are crocheting your stitches in the gaps. So this counts as one of these. So I've chained 2 and I'm just going to bring in my double crochet here. And there you go. That is as simple as it gets. There we go. And it's starting to neaten out. It's starting to look rectangularly. So now I'm just going to repeat the same process I did for this one side, and I'm going to just repeat it all across. Okay, we are at the final stretch of making this particular panel. And from here, we're going to just follow the chain 2 into the next space. And now we are just going to chain 2, and as always, we're gonna skip this little part here. Chain 2, go to our first stitch right over here, insert our hook, and create a nice slip stitch and fasten it off. So chain 1, chain 2. Gonna pull through. And you're gonna repeat this process for the second panel as well. And once you've done that, you can then move on to attaching the 2. In my case, I have both of them ready. So now I'm going to, number 1, weave in the ends, which is going to be very important. And I'm going to then attach them all with a single crochet, and I'll show that right when I finish weaving in the ends. So to attach the 2, I'm going to use this purplish mauvish color that I used in the main granny square. I'm going to now put the wrong sides together because unlike sewing, we don't have to worry about any loose ends. I'm just going to attach these as is. If you need a safety pin to hold them together, do go ahead and do that. In my case, I do not think I need any. And now what I'm going to do is for each of these stitches, I'm going to put 1 single crochet in each of these double crochets and 3 or 2 single crochets in each of these. Now for the 3 or 2 situation, it is entirely up to you and how you feel. I will be doing 2 at a time. Now in this case, you do not have to go all the way around. You only have to do 3/4 of the way so that whatever you put in here will have the space to go inside. So let's get started. Now I'm going with this, and I'm going to start from this corner here. I'm going to attach it how I normally do. From here, just insert the hook, place it through, take both of the yarns, tighten it up, drop the tail, and this is where I would recommend taking the tail with you as you go instead of weaving it in later. Here we're just going to chain 1. We do not need to do any more than that, and just crochet 1 stitch here. And now we're going to continue along. So I'm going to find the double crochet here, and I'm going to find the double crochet on this side that kind of crosses with it. So I'm going to put it through here, pull it through, and there we go. I'm going to repeat the same thing that I did with this stitch, which is find the double crochet here, find the next stitch right behind it here, and then pull through and do 1 single crochet. So like I said, all the stitches that I'm using are going to be very basic. There's nothing complicated here. This is about as simple as it gets. So again, find the stitch next to it, find the stitch right behind it, yarn over, pull through, and then pull through again. We're going to repeat this throughout. So again, now we're going to have to crochet in the space as well. So we're just going to go right through. We're not going to use any of the stitch chains. We're going to crochet 1 and 2. And that's it. So now again, I'm going to find the 3 stitches here. I'm going to just make them a line. I'm going to put it in 1, and 2, and there we go. It's very simple, and I prefer joining it this way. You can sew it together, that is entirely up to you. And now again, we have chain 2 space where we can just put 2 stitches here. And again, we're going to find this, and in case you're confused with how to get the single crochet right, this is how you're going to do it. You're going to take the hook, and you're not going to yarn over like we have been doing so far. You're going to take the hook, put it through the stitches. So in this case, we have our 2 stitches here, and this is where you're going to yarn over. You're going to yarn over, hook it, and pull it through the stitches, and you have 1 loop here. In the chains, we normally pull it right through, but instead of pulling it right through, we're just going to yarn over and yank it through. Now, I'm going to repeat the same stitch. So again, in case you aren't clear about the single crochet, just put your yarn through this, through the stitch, then yarn over, take it, pull it through, and again, yarn over and pull it through. And that is that. Now I'm going to repeat this across the entire edge. Until I reach the corner, and then in the corner I will tell you what to do. So along the way, I'm also just putting in 1 crochet stitch as well in the chain spaces. Like I said, this is super versatile, so it doesn't really matter how many stitches you put in these gaps. As long as there's 1 stitch there, it really won't matter as much, because at the end of the day you are just joining these 2 panels together. But I will say that the number of stitches that you get done here, where you make sure to connect these double crochet ones, are very important. So if you are in a hurry, for sure just do this 1 crochet and just go ahead with it. Plus, the ones with 2 crochet may have a little more ease to it, whereas the 1 crochet will kind of just stick together, which is kind of what I prefer. So again, this is all personal preference and how you want it to look. So this is how the single crochet in the bases look, and this is how the two crochet stitches, single crochet stitches, look like in the gaps. I prefer how the single crochet stitches look, so I'm going to continue with that. We have reached the next corner, and this is where I am going to put in 2 or 3 stitches, and that is solely for me to just be able to cross this specific part. So we're going to put 3 stitches in this corner, and then we can just turn it around and get started on the next one. And then again, you will follow the same process of finding the respective double crochets, going back and just linking them up. And it's okay if you don't get it at first. You can always just undo your stitch, go back and just connect it where you can. So in this case, I have to find it, and it's right here. I'm just gonna line that up and single crochet it across. Got that done. And now of course this has aligned with this one. So this is what the joining looks like. I really like the color combination going for me. So I'm going to continue with this, and I will meet you back for the final embellishments and adding the lining and just fastening off and finishing this cover. So I'm not going to cut off my yarn right now. I'm actually just going to continue with it as is. So I finished off with 1 single crochet at the end here. I'm going to add just 1 more, and I'm done with the attaching part. And now I'm going to, instead of doing both, I'm actually just going to go ahead and do the front part first, where I'm just going to put 1 single crochet in just the front panel, the panel that's right here, and crochet that in. And now I'm going to just make all of the single crochets just on the side, and then I'll circle around to this side. So again, I'm just going to repeat the same process that I did for the joining process, which is 1 single crochet in each stitch and 1 single crochet in the chain space as well. Okay, so now I have reached the end of 1 panel. So what I'm gonna do is put 1 stitch here. There we go, 1 stitch done, and now we're gonna have to put 1 stitch here as well. So what I'm gonna do is actually kind of slip stitch it into the first stitch, like so, and then turn my work around, and I'm gonna chain 1. So I'm gonna chain 1 like you just saw me did there, and then get started right here. There we go. And we're gonna continue just how we did before. You can see over here we have 2 stitches. There we go, 2 stitches here, so we just added the 3rd, and now we're gonna continue how we normally would. Now, on one of the panels, this won't be in both cases, you are going to create the button loop right over here. So now I have reached the middle section, which is where I wanted to do my button loop. So I'm going to stop right here, and I'm going to chain a couple chains, not a lot, just enough. I think I'm going to do, and this is entirely dependent on how large of a button you're going for. And of course you have to take in stretch and stuff like that, but in my case I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've done roughly 6 to 7, and I'm gonna go back here and just single crochet it in. And in this case I'm doing it in the single space, and that is my button loop. And I go back to crocheting single crochets into these stitches as we were before. And now once you've reached the end, you will put your single crochet here, and we're going to follow the same process. In this case, I'm going to put 2 just to kind of join the gap a little bit more, and I'm going to go into this first stitch here, just slip stitch it, and then chain 1 and chain 2, and then I'm gonna snip this off, and we are done making this case. The only thing left now is to weave in this end and to attach my button. But that is that. So I'm just gonna weave this in. Now at this stage is entirely up to you if you want to add a lining. In my case, I do want to add a lining, and I tend to prefer to do it by hand. I just normally finish the seams by machine, but this is essentially good to go on its own. And I'm just going to weave this in. There we go. Now at this stage, if you have any buttons that you would want to add here, you can go ahead and add, or you can make a crochet button. That is entirely up to you. I will be adding a small button here for this loop to attach to, and I'll be adding a lining, and we will see the final results now.